Another episode of the Peak Podcast. My name is Kyle Nelson, and I've got my great friend, business partner, and co-host of many, many episodes of other podcasts, and this one as well, Mr. Eli Libby. What's up, my man?
Hey, buddy. We are warmed up. We've done a couple shows today, and it's excited to have a third one on the queue here. So looking forward to it, man.
A good day of just amazing people that we've been just so blessed to talk to. So many cool individuals and learning a bunch, soaking up, learning from wisdom. And I think the listeners are going to be really in for some great episodes, especially this one. We've got an awesome guest today that's going to really talk a lot about the way that he helps sales teams worldwide for over 20 years. So without further ado, let's bring him on. Today we have Mr. Stuart Chant. He works with Outsell Consulting. And like I said, for over 20 years, he's been helping coaching sales teams worldwide on having those crucial conversations. Stuart, what's going on? Welcome to the Peak Podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I should say I am English. We should probably mention that, just so people know.
Really?
I live in California. It's confusing, but I was speaking recently and someone said, "Don't tell me Australia." And I was like, actually, I'm English. And they said, well, I was close. So,
what part of England are you from? What part of the country are you from?
In England, I'm just south of London.
Very cool.
Wow. How long ago did you come out to California? And where in California?
Yeah, I came out to the US in 91, and I live in Los Angeles now. I came here in 96. So I've been here for a long time.
Yeah. Wow.
Definitely home.
Very cool. Wow. Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, thanks for being here again. Excited to have you. Love your energy. Just even like right when we jumped on, it's always exciting. We've had so many just dull guests, so I'm excited. Thank you for being upbeat and ready to go. So, Stuart, give us a little bit of background into how you got into what you're doing today.
Yeah, it's a great question. I used to run a sales team.
Okay.
I was running a sales team, 150 people nationwide, and we needed to bring in a sales process, and I hired Outsell to come and fix my sales team back in 2005. And at the time, I remember thinking I was pretty smart. Turns out I was a buffoon. And I looked at these guys, they were like SWAT team guys. I was like, man, look at these guys. And I wanted to be one. So I ran away from America and hung out a shingle and joined Outsell. Like,
there you go.
It's fantastic. So,
nice.
God, that's cool.
Really like
so what's been the evolution since you started with Outsell? I know that you've done coaching for a long time. Did it start like that? Has it just turned into doing coaching for sales team? How did it all happen?
It started as coaching, but I think, as you know, guys, as you get more into this stuff, you somehow your specialty shows up. And I'm reading The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. And one of the things he says in it is, notice what you notice that others don't notice. And for me, that's questions. And I know that the kid in The Sixth Sense, he saw dead people. Spoiler alert! I don't know if anyone hasn't seen the movie yet, but he sees dead people. I hear bad questions, and that's my whole thing. I'm on a mission to help people get rid of bad questions.
Wow. The pressure is on. You have put the pressure on this podcast. I'm just going to tell you that right now. Do not ask a bad question, Kyle. I'm
just going to I'm signing off. It was nice seeing you guys.
You guys are killing it with the question. You're so good. This all started about 15 years ago. I was in a sales training session with a bunch of fintech people. And I had them stand up, and I was like, okay, let's pair up, find a partner. We're just going to work on conversations. And I said, what kind of questions should we ask? Should they be open or closed? And they all said, we should ask open-ended questions, Stu. And I was like, that's the right answer. And then as I listened to them, I went and walked around the room listening to them. And I started writing down all their questions. And I started writing them on the whiteboard. And after 6 minutes, I had like, are you, can you, could you, do you, did you, have you, is it, should you, will you, would you, how long and where? All that stuff was on the board. And they just had no awareness. So I think we naturally ask closing questions. What are your thoughts?
Well,
go
ahead, Cal.
I'm literally putting myself into the sales shoes right now and being sold to as well. And I am like, it's so true. There's such a difference between good questions and amazing questions. And then there's the crap questions that are just like, you're wasting everyone's time.
Yeah.
And I feel like, and forgive me if I'm wrong, maybe I'm going down the wrong path, but I feel like a good question is really truly a follow-up of what the context is in terms of like a detail you're trying to dive into, right? You're trying to find their pains, drains, and doubts and what that is so you can sell to them rather than just that, how are you, who are you, what do you, all that.
Yeah. I think it's fascinating. I think there's two things, right? You've got to have questions that get people talking. So you need a good open-ended question. So I put them, I went back to work with this crowd and I was like, I'm going to put you on a question diet. You're only allowed to ask what, tell me, or talk to me about. That's it.
Yep.
Then I walked around the room and I heard a guy go, do you like golf? And he was like, oh no, let me try again. What do you like? What do you do for fun? And so I think it's that awareness that you know, people become aware and they start getting better at it.
Yeah, that's very cool.
You need open-ended question, and then you got to keep them talking, right? That's the biggest challenge, I think. So
it is the biggest. Yeah, it is a big challenge. I think, you know, in some of the stuff we do, it's a little bit outside of that. But I think when we podcast, we've had, you know, keeping somebody going and looking at and watching some of the best podcasters. And like how Kyle said, they ask a question and then they just continue to dive in deeper. And then it becomes very back and forth. Yeah. And I think what, you know, on that note, what is that evolution of question asking like? You know, they start off with kind of the basics, but how do you help coach somebody into asking the better questions? Because my confusion, not confusion, but I guess is everybody's different, right? So how do you approach a conversation with more educated questions, I guess, and how do you coach on that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think obviously open-ended questions. What, tell me, talk to me about, you know, tell me and talk to me about. They're command statements, right? You're not even telling them what to say. And then you can use open-ended question starters, which is the next 2.0. Walk me through, clarify for me, help me understand, paint me a picture, describe for me, those kind of things. And one of my clients did one the other day, which I loved. It was, hey, take 2 minutes and walk me through your process. I mean, what a great question.
That's good. Yeah.
Right. So there's that. Awesome. You know, it's just the starting people talking, but then you've got double clicks. There's a term we use called double clicks, and I can't remember if I invented this or if I stole it. I don't know. I stole it from Steve. I apologize. You know, it could be. You know, obviously, I look forward to a world without plagiarism. You may call me a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. But double clicks is what it is. Here's what a double click is. It's where you take one word in an answer and you form a new question. So what you're talking about, Eli, is following along what they're talking about.
Yep.
And I think I was going to say the worst number I've heard is 73% of the time when we're in conversations, we shift away from what the person just said instead of supporting them.
Yes.
Sorry, Carl, you had a question.
I was going to say, tell me more about this double click. It's like some examples and what that looks like.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do one, Carl. Let's do one. I'll try and demonstrate it live and on air. What did you do for fun last weekend, Carl? Keep it clean. And if you remember, what did you do?
Went to a wedding last weekend. Whose
wedding did you go to?
Our good friends Chant's and Kaya's.
Oh, where was the wedding?
Beautiful ranch. Amazing ranch. It was like a picture out of Yellowstone. It was amazing.
What was the best thing about the wedding for you, Kyle?
That's where I have to stop. I got to keep it clean. So, no, the dancing. We had a fantastic time dancing. We had a really good time and throwing the groom up on the, on top.
Yeah,
of it. It was good.
I guess you can go dancing. Yeah,
that's fair. Right. So there's a.
See what you're saying.
That's double clicks.
Drive down.
Yep. It's not being narcissistic, right? I didn't say, "Oh, I'm going to a wedding on Saturday." It's it's all about you, and it's all about that. And I don't know what, in my line of work with salespeople, I don't know why they wouldn't want to, just follow the conversation and get the customer talking. So
that's good. That is so good.
A useful skill.
Get them talking. Yeah.
There's another skill I teach, and I think it's what else, basically. It's very, very simple, but when someone's trailing off and they've given you their answer, just as they're about to finish, just say, what else? And they always say more. And so many salespeople, I think, are so willing to accept the first answer the client gave them. I'm looking for more. And here's why. The average person can speak 125 words a minute, but we can think 1250. So
whoa,
the brain is like 10 times faster, right? We can,
no kidding.
We can think so fast. Obviously, people in the Northeast, they speak about 1,000 words a minute.
Yeah.
125. So when you ask a question, it's going to take a client a minute to answer. They give you their answer. And then when you say, what else? There's more. There's another 1,125 words they haven't given you yet. So it helps the client clarify their thinking.
Oh, my gosh. That is so cool looking at the science of it. There's so much behind a story, or there's so much more behind the words. There's so much story behind the delivery of the words. And I could see how your technique diving into it and asking those, the specific questions that are important. When you're teaching a sales team with this, how is it like very, is it one-on-one? You're doing lots of, trial and error. And what's the process like? Does it take them, is it just a one-time thing? Is it weeks? Is it months? And how do you see them succeed over time? What are some of the metrics you look at and KPIs that?
We just finished a training with a national sales team who sell automation parts to factories. So 120 people. We did 2 classes, 50 to 60 people in each class. And it was a 2-day session. So it's just lots of practice. Imagine my colleague and I, we're just like sports coaches. We just get them on their feet, doing reps, just practice that again. And so what we've seen from it is, I think we're really good at taking sales teams that are transactional and helping them become consultative.
Ooh.
You start asking open-ended questions, and clicking, and what else, and restating, and all these other things. It makes a massive difference to discovery.
I can see that for sure.
People, I just helped another sales team in the Philippines triple their sales.
Wow!
With this thing. So it's impactful.
Yeah. I think anytime in sales you go from transactional to relational, I think that's everything in sales. It's very and I think authenticity in sales. I had this corporate client approach and run this PowerPoint, very corporate approach to me, and it was so bad.
It's pretty bad.
It was so unauthentic, and it just felt like it was just a cookie cutter. Whereas I love the deep authenticity, where you're actually truly invested, right? You ask questions about his wedding or the wedding that we were at, and then you continue to dive deeper. And hopefully you actually really cared and you came up with some questions that were just cookie cutter questions. So
it's all about being interested, right? It's the word authentic, sincerely interested and curious. And I've found since I started listening, guys, I'm 62, so I'm really, really old. I didn't start listening until I was 45. I don't know. I've been married nearly 30 years. God knows how. But in listening, I think I've found that everyone is interested. Everyone has a story.
Absolutely.
Totally.
Our ego on hold. We're dying to talk about us, and the whole ego. If you can just listen, it's fascinating.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, so Eli brought up this transactional and relational thing. What about how does emotional intelligence, having empathy, self-awareness around the conversation, reading the room and the individual and the facial and expressions and all of that? The body language. Do you speak a lot on that? Is that a big thing, or are you really just focused on those questions and then kind of the next step is all the other fun stuff?
I think it's all part of it. I think it's all part of paying attention, right?
Yeah.
I think the trick is, if you're really listening, if you're really tuned in and you don't miss a word, you also don't miss a lot of body language.
Yeah, that's true.
You really have to pay attention. Most people, in my experience, most people aren't really listening. They're thinking about what they're going to say. They're listening to
That's so true.
They're not listening to understand. I was in a quick story. I was at a party and the host this is years ago, luckily, 20 years ago, the host was telling a story. And 25% of the way in the story, she says the word Hawaii. And I've been to Hawaii a lot. So, of course, what happens is your brain clicks on Hawaii. Oh, I could tell a story about Hawaii. Shall I tell one about Haleakala, Maui, Kauai? And I start thinking, and I'm really in my head thinking about what I'm going to say. She's still talking, so I can see her lips moving and noise is coming out the face, right? But I'm not getting any of it because I'm thinking what I'm going to say.
Yep.
Then I think, oh my God, it's 75% of the way in the conversation. I think I better re-engage. There might be a pop quiz. So I re-engage. All right. I'm tuning in again. And now she's talking about Cleveland. And I'm like, I've never been to Cleveland. I've got nothing on Cleveland. How am I going to awkwardly jam my Hawaii story in there?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've just been listening.
Navigating a conversation that can be difficult.
I think people are terrified. They've ever thought, and they're terrified that it's going to go. They've got to get it out. Or they And I think the best advice I ever got was just know that you will know what to say when it's your turn.
Makes sense.
When Kyle and I first started the podcast years ago, we struggled with that a lot. At least I did, where we kind of had some scripted questions. Again, this is way back in the day. And we were waiting to ask that question and not really listening to what they'd say. And then they would end, and then we would just ask a question and it would end.
Yeah.
And then you look at some of the best podcasters out there. I think Joe Rogan's the best at it. There's no script, and he just continues to ask the right questions and has some of the best podcasts I think are out there. But I know what you mean by when you're ready for the next topic, everything shuts off and all I see is your mouth moving. But I don't hear anything you're saying. Listening is so key.
It's hard. It's hard.
Yeah, go ahead.
We all look like we're listening, right? You can't tell. Yeah. You can tell is if you restate it. That's the only way I can listen.
For sure. How have you navigated this in a remote environment for sales teams? How have you kept engagement? Body language is huge, right? When you're sitting across from somebody in a sales situation, it's a lot different than somebody potentially having stuff going on. They're distracted. They're listening. They're actually not listening. How do you guys coach around that?
Yeah, we love it. We got an ebook about that. When COVID started, all of a sudden, within 3 weeks, everyone was doing virtual meetings, right? We had to be. Yeah. Well, we started to listen to podcasts, radio shows, and we were just trying to think, how do they avoid silence? How do they? There's never any silence, and we realized they're moving the microphone around. So we started to do that. We started to, if we're on a call together, I'd be like, Eli, I'm coming to you next because I know you've had really good experience in this, and we would pass the microphone. So everyone knows who owns it at one time, and we do a lot of training on that. And again, just watching, just paying attention, just listening.
Yeah,
makes sense.
Being authentic.
Well, we're starting to butt up to that time of kind of wrapping this up. I would love if you could share, all this experience of coaching and sales. If you could just share one tidbit. So one thing that you're hoping that you're getting your message across doing these podcasts and sharing your message, what would that be?
I think if I was, if there's any salespeople out there listening, I would say really pay attention to your questions because every company that's ever hired me, there's been a lot of them. I show up and I always hear the same questions. Are you? Do you? Have you? And I would just pay attention to the types of questions you're asking. I got called in by a large insurance company because they said, our customers won't talk to us. But that wasn't true. They were asking questions. I'd pay attention to the questions you're asking.
So good. I love
it. So if people wanted to get in touch with you, they wanted to get some sales training going, all that fun stuff, where are they going to find you? How are they going to get contacted?
They'll definitely find me, Stuart at Outsell Consulting. You can search Stuart Chant online. I've got YouTube channels and website, all sorts of stuff. Easy. Everyone can find me. I'm not hiding. It's easy to find. Stuart,
awesome.
That's it. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Stuart, that was a blast. That was
awesome, amazing.
20-minute conversation. Thank you so much. I learned a lot. And I think our listeners will too. So we appreciate you, and we'll definitely keep in touch.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Wow. Stuart
so
was
good.
The man. He really delivered.
Totally.
He showed us exactly. I really like the dive in. Keep diving in.
I do too. The double click.
The double click. Yes, that's what it was. And the other thing that was really cool was 125 words per minute we can speak, but it's 2,000. Was it 2,000? 2,000 that we're actually thinking. That is mind blowing.
Yeah.
And it just shows how much more there is to talk about.
It is, man. I loved it. I just loved the different ways to ask a question. A little bit more storytelling directions to the person, right? Paint me a picture. Tell me about your process in a couple minutes. Very cool.
Yeah, it's good. Well, if you want to listen to more amazing guests just like Stuart over at Outsell Consulting, make sure to hit that subscribe button to the Peak Podcast. And we'll talk to you and see you in the next episode.
See you guys.